Hi everyone, my name is Mr. Watson, and today we'll be looking at question 5 of AQA's Language Paper 1. If you're looking for other questions on this paper, then click the link up here and it'll take you to the playlist that I've put together for this exam. So, question 5 is the only question in the writing section, and it'll look something like this. As you can see, you'll be given a choice of question, one based on a given picture and one that isn't based on a picture. You answer one of them. These questions could be a narrative question, where you'll need to write part of a story, or a description question, where you focus more on describing a scene. It's important to note that you might not be given a choice of both question types. So you might get 2 narrative questions to choose from, or 2 description questions to choose from, rather than 1 narrative and 1 description. This question is your opportunity to be creative and show off your writing talents. So it's important that you engage your imagination whilst answering it. This question is worth 40 marks, which is 50% of the paper and worth 25% of the entire English language GCSE. So it's an important one. I'd suggest that you spend no longer than 45 minutes answering it. Because this question is worth significantly higher marks than all of the questions in the reading section, my advice would be for you to answer question 5 first. That way, you can collect as many marks as possible from the question that offers the most, before moving on to those that offer fewer. Finally, it is crucial that you plan your answer. There are too many marks at stake for you to begin writing without any kind of structure. If you're a confident and able writer, you may be able to come up with a somewhat decent response without a plan, but it would be nowhere near as organised or effective as one that had been planned out earlier. So, how would I go about approaching question 5? First, let's have a look at an example question. A local newspaper is running a creative writing competition, and the best entries will be published. Either write a description of a journey, as suggested by this picture, or write a story about a stressful situation. There are 24 marks available for content and organisation, and 16 marks for technical accuracy, totaling 40 marks. Now, as mentioned earlier, this question is all about you being creative and using your imagination. Because of this, I'm not going to show you a model answer, because an answer that I put together will likely be completely different to one that you come up with yourself. However, what I will do is talk through the kinds of things the examiner will be looking for, and offer some tips on going about answering this question. So, let's break down what is actually being assessed here. Content and organisation is also referred to as Assessment Objective 5, or AO5. The examiner will here be looking at your ideas and how clearly you get them across in your writing. The clearer and more convincing your ideas, the higher marks you'll receive. This AO considers the techniques you use, the vocabulary you choose, and the organisation of your answer with the use of paragraphs and discourse markers. Technical accuracy is referred to as Assessment Objective 6, or AO6. Here, the examiner will be looking at your use of spelling, punctuation, and grammar. Accuracy here is very important, and the more accurate you are, the higher marks you'll receive. Okay, to help you with trying to gain as many marks as possible from these assessment objectives, here are 6 tips that could prove useful. Tip 1. Use a cyclical structure. What I mean by this is begin and end your response in a similar way. For example, if you describe the weather in your first paragraph, go back to the weather in the final paragraph, maybe changing it slightly to show progression. This will help boost your marks for organisation, showing that you've considered the overall structure of your writing. Tip 2. Use ambitious vocabulary effectively. The vocabulary you use in your response will have an impact on both AO5 and AO6, so you might be tempted to throw in as many big and impressive words as you can possibly think of. My advice would be to not just put in words that you've heard here and there and that you don't really understand, as this could negatively affect the clarity of your writing. The sophisticated language that you do use, try to use it to create an effect within your reader. Think about how you want them to feel. Surprised? Shocked? Sympathetic? Tip 3. Variety is essential. You'll want to include language techniques in your response, such as similes, metaphors, etc., as well as punctuation, such as exclamation marks, question marks, etc. However, try to avoid overusing them. If you use similes over and over again, you won't be showing any variety, and the examiner may think that you can only use that one technique. If you were to use an exclamation mark 5 times in one paragraph, it won't stand out as much, so you'll lose the impact and effect that you might have had if you'd used it on a single sentence. Tip 4. Use structure in interesting ways. Another way to impress the examiner is to vary the structure of your response. Instead of using the same type of sentences over and over again, try to vary them. Use a complex sentence followed by a simple sentence. Try to include a one-word sentence now and again. Also, think about your paragraphs. Why not try to use a single sentence paragraph? This could really help to emphasize a particular idea or moment. Tip 5. Address the senses. Whether you're writing a story or a description, a great way to set the scene is by ensuring you address each of the 5 senses. I don't mean you should write he could see this and he could hear that. Consider being more subtle. Maybe you could describe the twittering of birds in the trees, which would address sound, the minty freshness of the chewing gum, taste, the stench of the man's socks, smell. The soft, woolly jacket describes touch, and sight can be addressed by describing anything within the scene. By doing this, you'll also create imagery, which will make your scene more vivid and easier to imagine for your reader. Tip 6. Proofread. This is absolutely essential. For a question that is worth as many marks as this, you can't afford to throw marks away over silly mistakes that you may have overlooked whilst you were writing. Under the time pressures of the exam, you may make more mistakes than usual, and that is absolutely normal. But the important thing to do is to make sure you leave time before the end to go back through your answer. You may spot a missed capital letter or a misspelt word, or perhaps you think of an even better adjective you could put in to replace a boring one. And each of these improvements will work to save you marks that otherwise you may have lost. Okay, I hope you found this video useful. If you did, feel free to give it a like, and why not subscribe so you don't miss any future videos just like this one. I'll thank you for watching, and I hope to see you next time.